Are you able to see now?
Yes, everybody is able to see. Can you please move to slide number 6, Jones?
Yeah, I'll do that.
The slide is titled Design Thinking Process Live Labs. Talking about the design thinking process, and what it involves is these distinct steps. So it starts from the immerse phase, wherein we try to understand the consumer's viewpoint by interacting with them, understanding their problems in real time, and then going on to identify what are the insights that can be drawn from it and how do they convert into these various opportunity spaces. And then it goes to the ideate phase, wherein we ideate on these opportunity spaces which have clearly come out after these interactions with the consumers and stakeholders. And on these ideations, we go to the prototype phase, wherein we quickly come up with these product concepts, and they need not be working or anything like that, but very quick to give us an idea about what is the touch and feel about, like for any particular concept. And the last phase and the important phase is also validation of these, the testing phase, wherein again we go back to the consumers and see how far have we resonated with their need that they clearly specified at the beginning. Now, if you go to the next slide, please. The design thinking process. Jones, next slide, please. Design thinking process has to be customized for every project that we do. So, for example, for this particular project, we started off with the first phase, which is the empathize. We have the design research phase, in which we did field studies and sample studies and talked to the stakeholders to kind of completely immerse ourselves in the problems that the people were facing. Next on, we analyzed the findings from the research and our sample study. I'm going to go in more details about the different stages and what we did. So we analyzed the findings of our research and drew out the insights and identified the opportunity areas. Then we ideated with different concepts, and the ideation is in form of quick, you could write like a quick description of what the idea is about, or you could draw a sketch, and then these ideas are improved upon. So either we make a paper model, or in this case you will see we made some interesting Play-Doh models, clay models, to kind of quickly see what kind of food products are we talking about. And actually then we went on to make edible food samples. So the prototyping phase continued to that, post which we did the consumer evaluation, in which we did consumer tasting, actual tasting of these food samples with the consumers, and we did home placements to kind of find out what people really think about these projects. Next slide, please, Jones. Next slide, please. First phase which I'm talking about, the field studies, in which we did in-depth interviews with the stakeholders of this of our client, different departments, and we talked about what is their view about their role in making a product which they are doing. Then we also observed consumers in their homes, and we tried to cover different ethnicities and tried to observe the people in the environment in which they consume these food products, and what kind of combinations do they form, what kind of accessories they use, how they store these food products, and so on. We also looked at different shops and local eateries, wherein to see how these products get displayed and stored in the shop kind of a scenario. And we also collected a lot of samples to study. Next slide, please. Now, what we are talking about in this particular infographic is that in the product life cycle, there are various touch points, and certain touch points are important, are only visible to certain people. For example, if you take the first few, which is like the R&D, flavors and seasoning, manufacturing, quality, distribution, these are accessible to the stakeholders, the people who are actually responsible for bringing the product out. Whereas from the consumer's viewpoint, it is the next phase, which is the purchase, storage and consumption. So for these touch points, it is more to do with the consumer. So you have to look at the entire product life cycle of of a particular food product. Next slide, please. Very quickly, this is kind of just showing what kind of studies we did, how did people keep the food products that they were consuming, and how it was displayed in the stores and so on. Next, please. Now, I talked about samples, and what these samples are actually is that when people are the consumers that we actually did immersions with, what are the food items that they preferred? What are the other food items that are available in the markets nearby? And also we picked up 50 region-specific samples from all across India for that particular food category. And next slide, please. And then we actually studied these samples in detail. I mean, we looked at these samples from different angles. We looked at all our research, all the consumer research that we have done from different angles. And we studied different components, like we studied the physical attributes like size, shape, color. And all this kind of helped us to go towards unique opportunity spaces that earlier were not visible. Next, please. Here, for example, is how we did this size-based clustering. Now, the food sample that we studied in here, among the 50 samples, there were different components of the food products, and there were various sizes, ranging from 1 centimeter to more than 5-6 centimeters. And we found that there is more density for a particular in a particular size margin, and probably an opportunity space here could be in a space wherein there are few products available in that size category. Next, please. Another interesting one was based on the primary taste. So we have these like food samples. We have the primary taste of salt, sweet, spicy, tangy, and so on. So we could observe that, for example, salty and spicy, there were quite a few food products which were available in this particular spice taste combination. Not so much for other combination which involved the sour component. And completely no products at all in certain other things like bitter and umami flavors. So another possible area in which there could be an opportunity space. Next, please. This is another one wherein we looked at the different consumption moments that these products were consumed in, and this came in from the when we observed the consumers interact with the product. And we could see that there is again density towards some areas and not so much in the other areas. So are there any consumption moments that we can target, again leading to an opportunity space? Next, please. So now we had all of these insights that are coming in from the research and our analysis, and we had also identified certain opportunity areas that we want to look at. The next phase, which is the most interesting phase in our journey, is a collaborative workshop. In this collaborative workshop, next please, what we did is that we brought in all the insights and opportunities that had come from our analysis. Next please, Jones. And we involved the client stakeholders from various different departments like the R&D, the flavors and seasoning, marketing, manufacturing, everybody. And together we presented the findings of the research, and then through a structured process, we kind of helped them identify select the opportunity areas that they would like to concentrate in. For example, for this particular project, we saw that there were insights coming in, and the opportunity spaces we could actually bucket into different categories. Some of the example categories are given over here, like ingredients, formats, flavors, packaging, consumption moments, and so on. And here, the stakeholders together, they decided which are the buckets, which are the opportunity areas they want to concentrate on now immediately, and which they want to probably keep it on the back burner. So again, this gives a very good chance for everybody to appreciate what the research has brought in, and the whole ideation process kind of collaboratively happens. Next, please. For example, I have given like what kind of insight we drew and what is the opportunity space that kind of got thrown out from this. Like we have guests at our house, and while serving tea or coffee, we also sometimes offer them cookies. Now when a guest is sitting and you're offering it to 4-5 people, they either have to get up and pick up a cookie, or the host has to move around and offer the cookie to them. Now, an opportunity here could be a new format of serving cookies wherein we don't need to actually go and serve them. Without any dish or a tray, you can serve the cookies as an accompaniment to your beverage. Next, please. So, now, the next phase of this one is prototyping. So, as I said, from the ideation workshop, we get a lot of these opportunity areas. We identified which opportunity areas we want to ideate in. And then in each of these opportunity areas, we ideate a lot of concepts. And then when these ideas they come maybe in a form of a simple one-line description, or it could be a rough sketch, anything it can be. And then we take this on and refine them further. And we call this phase as the prototyping. Here we have defined prototyping in 4 different stages: concept refinement, rapid prototyping, advanced prototyping, and food sample creation. Next, please. One of the ideas that we saw, that one of the opportunities was that a new format for serving cookies. So what are the different ways in which this idea could be expressed? So it could be like a cookie which is like a half moon shape which sits alongside with a cup, or a lot of small bites, or a cookie that could serve as a coaster as well. I mean, it could be mad ideas, crazy ideas, anything really, and we kind of build on them. So one of the ideas that really could probably go for, showed promise, was probably one that is like a cookie garnish. A cookie which kind of sits on the side of your cup, and I mean, that's the way it gets served. So this is the way you can bring a one-line description that a cookie without a dish or tray, and convert it into various different idea options, and then build on these options and make it into a concept. Next, please. And then comes the interesting part, is like how do we actually imagine this product in 3D, a third dimension. So what we did was we quickly made a cookie out of a Play-Doh, and we made it really rough. It was not even a minute's job, but it actually helps us see how this product is going to look later on. Next, please. And attractive as this looks, it is not edible. So, and a food product is all about the taste as well. So what we wanted to do is to see how these products actually can be made. So the next phase of this project was advanced prototyping, wherein we got some amateur chefs to try out various different formats, various different flavors for the ideas that we had kind of brought in together. And how this helped is it gave us a lot of insight, because we were assuming cookies are made of Play-Doh, and that was not the case. And it helped a lot having this first cut rough prototyping for edible concepts. A lot of ideas didn't work, and there were a lot of directions and changes that we could make to our approach from this one. And what it also led to is an innovation framework. Now, an innovation framework and the way this kind of evolved was a very, very, very beautiful thing, because it helped the client to come up with umpteen such ideas. If you go to the next slide, you see a kind of a diagram. This is not the real innovation framework which we could give to the client. Of course, that is very confidential, but this gives you a rough idea about what this innovation framework is about. So it takes on the different parameters of the product, identified again from the research that we did, like size, shape, color, the processing method, the flavors, taste, the consumption moments, and having a multiple combinations of them can lead to different product ideas. Now, this is a very first cut product idea. Some would be absolute ridiculous combinations, but I mean, it makes you think. So a lot of the client could come up with a lot of these kind of ideas and decide which ones they want to actually go and try out. So this is a very important tool that kind of evolved from this project. Next, please. The next phase then was actually we tried our hand with the amateur chefs, but what we realized is the flavor and the taste is the most important part of this, and for that we hired a professional chef who actually made selected food samples of the products that the client had identified and resonated with. So the chef and his team, they kind of iterated with a lot of these ideas, and they spent 2 weeks in their kitchen experimenting with various flavors and tastes and various formats, various colors, and all these sessions were moderated by us, by the Live Labs team, to make sure that they follow the same spirit of innovation in which they were created, in which they came to be. And we had requested the chef to come up with 8 different kind of food samples, and the chef was very enthusiastic. He had come up with 17 different food samples at the end of it. Next, please. Next phase is of the consumer evaluation. Now, prior to the consumer evaluation, we actually went for the stakeholder evaluation. We couldn't really subject the consumers to 17 different food samples to get their view. So we did a round with the stakeholders in a consumer tasting lab, and we got them to evaluate these 17 different product samples in terms of the different sensorials. And from 17, we could come down to 8 samples that we tested with the consumers. Next, please. So, just to give you, this consumer tasting lab was very, very interesting because these were really prototypes. They were not actual products that the consumers were giving their opinion on. These were created specifically based on on the research that we did, and it was brought in front of them. They could taste it, they could feel it, if it was crunchy, they could feel the crunch. If it was salty, they could feel the salt. So it was very, very interesting, and they actually ranked them in terms of the different parameters. We had given them the parameters in which they had to kind of evaluate these. Next, please. And post this, we again, it's an iterative process. So post this, we had the feedback which had come from the stakeholders who had tasted the samples and the consumers who had in the groups who had tasted the samples, and we gave the chef a list of improvements that could be made in the samples, and the chef incorporated these changes, and then the bulk samples were created for home placements. Now, home placements were done in 8 different houses, different ethnicities of people, different family compositions, and the products were kept in their houses for 4 days to get their feedback on what they feel about it. And various different aspects of it were tested. Please. If you see this whole process in a nutshell, we have the first phase wherein we have the ideas coming in, where the Live Labs team is coming up with different product ideas. We have the stakeholders kind of selecting the ideas that they think resonate with their company. And then we go in the prototyping phase wherein we talk with the amateur chefs, we create mock food samples, and from all these learnings we go to the chef who actually makes food samples, again moderated by the Live Labs team at all points. This then goes to the stakeholders and the consumers for evaluation, for their feedback, based from which we again make the changes, make iterations, and the thing goes for all the samples go for home placements, and then for the pilot production, actually tasted and validated food samples. Next, please. So among the outcomes, I mean, the interesting thing was out of the 8 samples that we had given out for the home samples, people liked everything really. I mean, we are not exaggerating. There were not enough samples for the consumers to give feedback on. They liked it so much they had finished all the samples that were kept in their houses. They use words like they're unique, innovative. So all in all, it was very good experience. Very new products which were not there and they had not seen or tasted before had come out of this entire journey, and out of this the client is going to take some of them and start the next phase, which is the pilot production, pretty soon. In terms of key learnings, what we saw is that from the research project that we do, how it stood apart, it actually created edible food samples, and food samples which are totally new. It also gave the client an innovation framework with which they could continuously come up with many such ideas. Now that they know the innovation process and they have the innovation framework, they could actually make up these combination and try out the different things. So it's a continuous process for them. Also, it's a collaborative process of ideation. You could see that all the stakeholders from different departments are involved in the project, and so there's an excitement, there's a sense of ownership about the product, which really helps because this is the team, the client team is the one that is going to take it forward to the next stage of bringing it into production. So everybody is on board already. Next, please. Next, please. In terms of the suggestions that I could make, next, please. Is that one thing that really helped us was to see the entire product journey, because typically in the research we tend to concentrate more on how the consumer is interacting with the product, but there's a lot of knowledge that the stakeholders can bring to this bring to the whole thing. So understanding the product in terms of how it's actually made and brought to the point where the consumers consume it and store it and package it, so that is very important. A thorough analysis of everything is very, very important. So as I told you, we not only studied the findings from the research, we also studied a lot of samples which were close by, which were in the same category. And this really helped us come up with opportunity areas that we didn't know, which would not have come up otherwise. Next, please. And again, the prototyping phase, as I said, it is testing the products at all stages. You could see that once the ideas had come up from the ideation workshop, we checked with the stakeholders and we got the feedback done. Again, then when the food samples were made by the amateur chefs, we tasted it. We got our peers to taste it, and we could give feedback on that. We had learnings from that. And even after the professional chef had made the actual food samples, it went through 2 levels of testing with the consumers to come up with the kind of products that ultimately came up. So the iterative process of improving on the products that had come up was really helpful. This is all about this project, and what I would like to end up with is that my team, Live Labs, is very excited with the kind of products that we do, especially in the FMCG category. Because in FMCG, what we could bring to the table are new product concepts and features and packaging, which kind of would supplement the kind of results that we generally get with the other groups within IMRB. Like, for example, if we go alone, it would only be one part of the exposure, but the remaining, the payoff, the sensorial, the benefit spaces. So a combined offering would definitely benefit us, and as a Live Labs representative, we are very much interested in making such collaborative offerings, which would give a much more value-added offering to our clients. Thank you. That was my presentation.
Thanks a lot, Yugandhara. This was an excellent illustration of how the design thinking processes that are embedded in Live Labs have been used successfully for developing innovative products for our clients. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yugandhara, I had a question which is around the observations that were done and the fact that naturally foods being a category, there is a lot of variability across different ethnicities, different parts of the country per se, if you're looking at India only and across various regions. How did you decide, what was the criteria that you used when you were deciding the number of observations that you would require to be able to come up with a comprehensive set of product ideas?
The observations that we did were, we tried to be as diverse as possible. It's not really about numbers over here. It's about how intense the research is, how immersed you are in the research. So when we went to the customers' houses, we actually spent 2-3 hours there. We had tea with them. We had the morning tea with them. Again, we went back in the evening and had observed them while they were having snacks. We interacted with them really. So I think for this particular project, we did about 8 very diverse ethnicities wherein we spent time in their houses. To answer your question, as diverse as possible ethnicities, it need not even be distributed across the country. You could do it within 2-3 cities, but try diverse ethnicities and spend time with them, observe them closely, and interact with them without not asking many questions, but just look at how they interact with the product that you're studying. For example, we saw that when people were having tea, they normally served some kind of snacks. They served some loose snacks and they served some biscuits or papad or khakra, something like that. And while they were having these loose snacks, they would break a piece of the khakra and they would pick up the loose snack with that. So they were actually using the khakra or the papad like a spoon. Now this is not an observation that somebody is going to tell you that they do it like this, or nobody is going to tell you that we serve 2-3 snacks at a time. It comes from really sitting there and observing them while they're having their tea.
Hello, this is Sarwar Kazim from Oasis, Pakistan. This is a very good presentation and well thought out work. I have only one question. While you were doing such a presentation, have you think over the prediction of the sales about any simulated kind of work that could give you what could be the predictive sales of this concept and new ideas when you would, or will you look at the latter stage of the development?
For this project, it was mainly to do with the acceptance of the product, acceptance of the food products that we had kept at the consumers' houses, and it resonated very well. It kind of came across as very likable and edible kind of products for all the consumers. For this, any sizing of what the potential sales that is going to happen was not done. We do that. Recently, we did a project for a kitchen appliances where post the innovation phase, we created these concept cards which clearly illustrated what this concept is all about for a kitchen appliance. And then we did a quantitative study which gave indications about the sales potential based on a benchmark that the client had provided. So we do that, and it's kind of all part of the testing phase, and we highly recommend that. So actually that is it really, because for this FMCG category in particular, the kind of projects that we do are piecemeal. They are small in volume, maybe 5 or 6 lakh, but if we do a combined offering, it kind of gives a very different kind of offering to the client, and also the project value kind of increases because the client is getting more out of it. We recently had a win for a personal care project wherein we combined the qualitative study, the innovation part, as well as the quantitative validation of concepts, and the project value was about 30 lakhs plus or something like that. So again, it is a win-win for all involved, even for the client, because they are getting a complete validation of the concepts. They're coming up with new product ideas and getting them validated.
Thanks. Any further questions?
Yugandhra, this is Ratnakumar here from Chennai.
Hi, Ratnakumar.
In the entire framework, you started with the opportunities which you were trying to look in terms of the gaps in size and the taste mix. You try to look at the gaps and then start with the opportunities. Did the whole exercise in terms of opportunities to idea to prototype, did it really bear out what you started with as the opportunity? I mean, what I mean is like, did whatever you saw as a gap and as an opportunity, did it emerge as did it finally emerge as a product or a prototype?
Surely. That was what had happened is, in this project, we really can't reveal the details because it's a public document. These are not the actual frameworks that were used for the client, but these are indicative ones to give you give a feel of what kind of analysis frameworks we use to analyze the findings. So, but to answer your question, yeah, we started off with this point, and we did observe the samples that we had studied from different perspectives. One of the things that definitely came to be like is the preference of consumers for, like I gave the example of how people picked some loose snack with a khakra and ate it. So a clear preference towards not eating loose snacks with their hands came out from the consumer research, and we also saw an opportunity in the sizing where there were not many products in the bigger size category. So kind of both of these together showed a clear preference for more than for finger foods more than foods. Actually came out in the final results as well. It was mostly finger food, things which you could pick up with your hands and eat rather than loose morsels.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Okay. So Hira from Oasis Insight. But I
Hi.
want to understand one thing in ethnography. You take different kind of sample for 50 products, right?
Yes.
So what kind of technique you had used to assess the different packaging and different packaging को understand करने के लिए कितना ही techniques को use किया है ethnography में आपने?
Sorry, this ethnography and sample studies were different units. Ethnographies were, we call it immersions, wherein we don't really ask a lot of questions, but we just sit quietly in the corner and observe people go about their work. And the second part, which is the sample studies, wherein we collected a lot of these kind of food samples of that category and studied them. And we studied in all aspects. What is the component size, what are the tastes, what is the packaging used and everything. So these are two different components of work.
But ethnography only you just observe things that what kind of product people are using?
No. How are they, like for example, eating their snacks, for example. We sit with them, we chat for a while, and then we sit and observe and they go about whatever they're doing. So whenever they feel like eating, whenever they're having their tea, they'll have their tea, and we don't interfere with that. It is mostly non-intrusive observations.
And duration of observation is
Totally depends. It is very flexible. It depends on the kind of respondents we get. It could be anywhere between 2 to 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one question is Jasajit from MRB1. In this method, let's say, if it's tangible, the examples you have shown are fairly tangible. So it's shape, size, format, flavors. Do you have a framework where you can include non-tangibles? Because a lot of differentiation can happen through not necessarily physical differences.
Yes, actually, the actual innovation from work does involve non-tangible aspects to it. It is just the activity that we cannot show it because of the obviously. Definitely.
How do you generate the insights for non-tangibles, or how do you collect the data for that?
Mainly through the observations that we have kind of taken this data in. Like however we studied the data, we studied the consumers. So we write down detailed reports about what we actually observed, and we look at our interactions with them from different angles, and we draw the inferences from there.
Okay.
Any further questions? Fine. Thanks a lot, Yugandhara.